Welcome to what surely will be a doozy of a matchup right here, sports fans. Whether your game is on the gridiron, at the diamond, or on the links, we can only say, get up off your seats and get ready for some real action. Welcome to this week's Huddle Up with Gus. 15-year NFL quarterback Gus Frerotte, passion for sports, has taken him on the field and behind the benches, playing for 7 NFL franchises with 114 TDs under his belt. Gus knows who the players are and how the games are won.
If not every day you get to hang out with an NFL quarterback, huh?
Okay, sports fans, from the decked out and plush 1631 digital studios, it's kickoff time. So snap your chin straps on and get ready to huddle up with Gus.
This one of the extreme variety. A big play to Leslie.
Hey everyone, Gus Frerotte. Huddle Up with Gus, 15-year NFL quarterback. I appreciate you listening. You're going to enjoy our show today. Our last show, we just had Dottie Pepper on, who is the walking reporter for CBS Golf. This week is a special show. We have 9-time NFL Pro Bowler, 2-time NFL passing leader. He won 5 titles in the CFL in a row. And you just record after record, and in both the CFL and Pro Football Hall of Fame, an alumni and a brother of mine from the NFL. Joining us today is Warren Moon. How you doing, Warren?
Yes, I'm doing great, man. Great to see you. Great to talk to you, and looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, I am too. I could have probably kept going with all your stats for everything, because I look at my career. I had 15 years, and I was telling my son tonight, I said, I threw 120 touchdowns in the NFL. Warren Moon threw 5 times that many. It's like it's intense and insane of how many passes you throw, and how many, like if you think about in your 23 years, how many times your arm came forward with that little, as you said in one of your interviews, I just got to throw this little oblong ball down the field and put it in the end zone.
Yeah, I can't even imagine how many times, not only that I threw in games, but what about all the time in practice, just warming up during a game, just getting ready for a game. How many passes do you throw in pregame warm-up, or when you're getting ready to go in on another drive, you take another 4 or 5 passes just to get yourself loose to go back in again. So, yeah, it's been a lot of passes in this arm. And I have a 14-year-old right now who plays high school football, and he's a receiver and a running back. So I'm throwing the ball to him too, and my rotator cuff is burning sometimes after I get done throwing with him because he never gets tired.
Oh, I can imagine. At 14, who got tired, right?
No, nobody gets tired.
Yeah. Well, especially you. I was reading your story a little bit, and it's so nice to do these shows because I get to I know your story, but I don't know your story, so I got to go back and do a little research. You grew up in L.A. Your father passed away when you were young, and it sounds like your mom did a lot of the work, but you had to pull a lot of the weight in the household too. But you had 6 sisters.
Yeah.
Which one of them taught you how to throw?
I pretty much taught myself how to throw by throwing objects at them, because they got on my nerves all the time. But I don't know how I really learned how to throw the football. I just started doing it, and I was very good at it at like 8 or 9 years old. And then when I started playing Pop Warner football at 10, that's when everybody started to see that this kid has an arm. And I used to just practice all the time out in the streets with buddies of mine throwing the football before I actually got into playing organized football. And then I just developed it from there. But it was mainly just through repetition, man, just throwing it as much as you possibly could, figuring out what's best, figuring out what's the best grip, what's the best release, what finger, it needs to come off of. And that's what it really came from. I remember out in I lived on a corner on the street that I lived on. So we had, 4 street lights in that corner. And that was my lighting, because I would be out there with a buddy of mine down the street, and I would just be throwing pass after pass after pass until my mother finally would just yell and scream at me to come in the house. So a lot of repetition, a lot of practice.
That is awesome, because you think about it, back then, there weren't a lot of videos. There wasn't anything out there to self-teach,
No.
Because now you can watch all these kids watch the internet. You see kids now, they're that age and they're getting taught by coaches. Like, it was my dad throwing football with me and saying, this is what you got to do. And I'd be like, Dad, you just got to work from the factory. You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, these kids today, the game has become so specialized. And like you said, these kids have coaches from the time, depending on if they can afford it. And some of them 8, 9, 10 years old, and then all the way up through high school, they're getting great quarterback coaching from quarterback experts, guys who have played the game or guys who have coached the game for a long time. So they're learning the fundamentals and they're learning all the techniques that you need to learn as a quarterback at a very, very young age. And I think that's why these kids come into the pro game so well prepared, is because of what the training that they've had for so many years before they even get there.
Well, and that is so true. And I tell kids all the time, look, in ninth grade, my first year of football, I played line, right? I was like the biggest kid and I hated it because everybody was kicking my butt all over the place. So then the next year in eighth grade, I didn't know what I was going to do. I just went out for the team, and I didn't have a specific job like quarterback. You just played wherever the coach put you. Then in ninth grade, I broke my neck playing football. I tackled somebody with my head down. So I didn't play for 2 years. I never played quarterback until I was in a junior in high school.
Wow.
And so I always tell kids, like, there's a path. If you want to follow it and find it, there's some way for you to get there. If it's your dream and what you want to do, it doesn't have to start when you're 7. It can start when you're 15 or 16 or whatever. But I love your story that you kind of did that on your own, and you've kind of probably formulated how you threw the ball your whole career.
I really did. And, when you grow up with 6 sisters and a mom, you find yourself being alone a lot of the time. So I was in my yard or out in the street alone a lot of times, just kind of acting like I was a pro football player or a college football player. And I was the announcer. I was the player. I remember nights where I would be taking the trash cans out to put on the street for the trash man to come. And what I would do is I'd line up like I was in the I formation, and I'd get a handoff and I'd make all these moves all the way back to the backyard to get the next trash can. But I'm announcing it the whole time. And he gets the handoff and he goes right through the hole. I mean, I was the whole thing, because that's how I had to entertain myself as a young kid. The same thing playing basketball. I would play by myself, but I was Chick Hearn, who was the voice of the LA Lakers, because I grew up in Los Angeles, and I would kind of say what he would say as I made baskets all the time. So yeah, that's what I was as a young kid. I had a great imagination. I had this dream that I wanted to play in the NFL one day, and I finally realized it. And that was the book that I wrote about 12 years ago. It was called Never Give Up on Your Dream, My Journey. And it just talks about all those different steps that I went through to get to the National Football League.
I love that. So who was your idol growing up? Like obviously we only watch football on Sundays. It's not like we could watch it every day and all this. So who was that? Like when Sunday football came on, who was the guy that you loved to watch?
Well, being in LA as a young kid, I really idolized Roman Gabriel, who was the quarterback of the Rams at that time when I was a young kid. And then James Harris, who was African-American quarterback, came later on, and he led the Rams to the NFC Championship game. He was a Pro Bowler, and he was somebody I could really identify with as far as, my ethnicity, thinking that, okay, maybe one day I can play in the NFL because here's another black guy that's actually playing in the NFL and doing well. Right. So those are 2 guys that I really looked up to. And then Roger Staubach was somebody, league-wide I really looked up to, because I loved his style of play. It kind of fit more of who I was as far as being able to throw the ball, but also being able to run the ball and scramble and do the things that he did, even way back in those days in the late 60s, early 70s when he played. So those are 3 guys that I really idolized as quarterbacks.
Yeah. So did you play all 3 sports like when you were a kid? I know in high school you kind of went to one sport, because I just love that you can only play one sport because you had to work the other seasons.
Yeah, I love basketball. That's my favorite sport to this day. And if I would have been taller, if I would have been 6'5" or over, I would have chosen basketball to play. And I was pretty good when I was younger. Baseball might have been my best sport, but it was a little too slow for me. And football, I gravitated towards it because when I grew up in my house as a 7-year-old, I kind of matured a lot faster than most 7-year-olds because of the circumstances. I became the man of the house, and I had all this responsibility, and I got 6 women in the house that I have to, kind of look over and make sure they stay safe and that type of thing. So I really created some great leadership skills as a young kid because of that. And I think that's why I gravitated towards playing quarterback.
Well, on that front, I love how you learned how to sew, how to cook. You had to learn how to do all these things because it's like there's nobody else going to do it for me.
No, and it wasn't. And my mother taught me all those things, but there wasn't a man around that could teach me how to do the mechanical things. I couldn't change the oil on my car when I was able to get a car in high school, or I couldn't fix things around the house like maybe other young kids could because they had a dad showing them how to do that. So I was very good at taking care of myself, especially when I went away to college. Living in the dorms or living in an apartment. Everybody wanted to come to my house because I could cook.
Yeah,
they knew they could get a good meal when they came around Warren, and I could take care of myself. I could sew. I washed my clothes. I did all those things that you need to do to be functional in life. And I spent a lot of time alone when I was in Canada my first 3 or 4 years before I got married. So learning all those things that I learned from my mom when I was younger really came beneficial later on in my life when I was living by myself.
I could imagine. Hey, everyone. Thanks for listening to Huddle Up with Gus. We appreciate you being here. Check me out at huddleupwithgus.com. We're talking with Warren Moon. Warren, we were talking a little bit about when you were younger. One thing I wanted to ask you, when you started playing football only, did your family, did your sisters, did they all come to all your games? Was it a big family thing? Do you have a lot of other family in the area?
Some of my older sisters had gone away and were living in different cities, so they weren't able to come to a lot of my games. But my younger sisters, yes, they went to a different high school than I did. They went to the high school in my district where I was supposed to go, but I just didn't want to go there because it was huge gang movement at that time. The athletic program wasn't great at that high school for football. So I went to a school called Hamilton High School in West LA, and they would come to my games whenever they got a chance to. But my mom was at every game, and she was somebody that really supported my career.
Yeah. So when you would come off of a game from high school, what was it like? What did she have a saying for you? Did she always give you a pep talk? Or because my dad was the first one to see me, and it didn't matter how many touchdowns you threw. He'd be like, "Why'd you throw that interception?" That was him. So what was your mom like for you in high school?
No, she was more nurturing. There's no question about it. It didn't matter how I played as long as I came out of the game, okay. That was the first thing she wanted to know. How do you feel? You took this hit there. You took this hit in the third quarter. How you feel after the game was over. And she was also aware of how nervous I would get the night before games. So what she did is she taught me how to bake cookies, believe it or not, the night before games. So I would get my mind and focus off of football because I became a little irritable around the house the night before games.
Yeah.
So she taught me how to bake and just to get my mind off of playing football. And I was like anything else I did, I took very seriously. So I took this baking very, very seriously and became pretty good at it to where I started a business, a chip cookie business when I went to Canada. But that was one of the things she taught me to do was bake chocolate chip cookies the night before games just to mellow me out a little bit.
Is that your favorite cookie still to this day?
It's right up there. I like it with a little more of a oatmeal base to it, though. It makes it a little more crunchier. So it's still a chocolate chip cookie, but got a little more of a.
Back. I'm sure when you were younger, it was Crisco.
Yeah,
you used the really, really bad good stuff for you.
Lard.
Yes, but that's what made them so
good. A lot
good.
of butter, though. A lot of butter too. Butter and lard together. You made a pretty good cookie.
Were you a dunker guy with your cookies?
No, I was bite and then drink. I actually like to eat all my cookies and then save the milk for last and just guzzle it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, everybody has their own way. It's fun to ask people
got their own
what I mean? And I love that you had that side to you. So your leadership skills are well known when you were playing, and those always have to come from somewhere. And you were alone a lot, like you said, but those leadership skills to understand how to look behind you and all these people are following you and they want to be with you. Where did that come from for you?
I really think it came from my mother, believe it or not. you got to remember she was left at a very young age when my dad died, with 6 kids all of a sudden. And, what is she going to do? Is she going to fold? Is she going to give up? Is she going to, live off the government or welfare or whatever? My mother went back to school and became a nurse.
Oh, that's amazing.
And I just watched how she took care of our household and made everything work, and she never showed any panic or anything like that. And it was always, everything had a place for it in our very small house. She always had, hot food for us on the table. We always had clean clothes. She'd work 2 shifts. So I watched her do all of that and watched how she led our household. And I think a lot of my leadership came from her. And I think one of the things in my personality I wanted to be like her was to be so calm and cool about everything. And as people talked about me throughout my career, they always admired how I never changed my demeanor. And I think a lot of that came from my mother. You never saw me get too high and emotional. You never saw me get too low. And that's the way she was. And I just really admired the way she took care of our family and the way she commanded our family.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot to learn, because when I watch videos of you, when they would put the mic on you, or they'd have the mic on the field and you were talking and they were like, oh, Warren's really pumping them up. You'd be like, all right, guys, let's just go down, put one in the end zone. Yeah. And I'm like, wait. I thought he was going to be like Drew Brees and doing the crazy, but I'm like,
I know. And I wish I had that in me sometimes.
I never did either.
I watch some of these guys do that, and they get in these huddles and they're pumping guys up like Drew Brees does before games or whatever. That's just not my personality. But the guys around me knew that inside of me there was a fire burning, and they also knew how I was throughout the week of preparation, that I didn't take any crap. I wanted everything to be perfect. So by the time the game came, I didn't want to have to do that with anybody. If you can't get yourself motivated to play an NFL football game, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah. You set the standard during the week, and everybody followed it. That is great. So then, all right. So then you go to a 2-year college after high school, right? Was it pretty close to your house, or was it kind of far across the city here?
No, it wasn't very far. It was called West LA Junior College. It was probably the same distance as my high school that it was to the junior college, just a little bit further further south. But I had worked out there a lot in the off seasons when I was in high school. I was very familiar with it. And my high school coach, he went to the junior college as the offensive coordinator. So we went there and basically ran the same offense.
Oh, that's nice.
With a little bit more passing to it in the junior college. And I had a really, really good 1 year there. I didn't go for 2 years. I didn't want to go there at all, but it was really hard for me to get a scholarship as a quarterback at that time to one of the major schools that actually threw the football. There was a lot of schools that wanted to recruit me that ran the option and the beer and wishbone and all this stuff. I'm like, I'm not a wishbone quarterback. I'm a good athlete for playing quarterback, but you're not going to see me running no 4-5 or 4-4 and making guys miss and all those different things that it takes in those type of offenses. I wanted to go somewhere where my strength was. I wanted to throw the ball.
Yeah. I want to use my brain, throw the ball where it needs to go. And, I love that. Like, my thing was, I was a wing T guy in high school. I was so happy to get out of the wing T and go to college and be able to drop back and just throw it. Right. It's so different. So
my son is in the wing T right now, and the quarterback for that team, they throw it 4 times a game. But
I threw like 40 times my whole high school career.
But nobody can stop their running game, and he wants to play receiver. But because they don't throw the ball, they put him at running back where he can touch the ball, and he's doing really well there. But I don't want him to play running back, because running backs get beat up and they have a very short life if they ever get to play pro football. I want him to be able to play what he wants to play, which is wide receiver.
Yeah, when my sons went to high school, the Pittsburgh Central Catholic ran the wing T, and I begged them, and finally they did it, and we went to shotgun. So it became a single wing, which was a little bit – you can still run most of the same plays.
Right.
But I said, we have these incredible players, and 2 of them never touched the football. The guys standing out by the numbers, right? Yeah. And I said, we got to get everyone involved in all this.
You become a wide blocker is what you are.
Yeah, exactly.
Wide receiver, you're just a wide blocker. And the wingback only carries the ball maybe 4 or 5 times a game. He might get some big plays out of it, but most of the time he's blocking.
Yeah, he's just the ghost guy, right? He's the one saying, oh, I'm going to get it. Fooled you guys, right? That's the wing T for you.
Exactly.
So was your high school and when you went to West LA, was your high school coach, what was his name?
Jack Epstein.
Was he a good mentor for you? Was he younger or older?
He was at that time, he was probably in his 40s. He's still alive, believe it or not. And we still have a relationship. And then my other coach, Ron Price, is alive as well. And I have a really good relationship with him and his son. His son is very active. So these people are still in my life to this day. And like
That's
I said,
incredible.
A lot of the reason why my mother put me in sports was to get me around more boys, because there was all women in my house, and then more mentored, like mentor guys, like coaches that would be more like a father figure to me. And that's what a lot of my coaches became. They became like father figures to me, and Coach Epstein and Coach Price were no different.
Yeah, I will say this, even though I had a dad, those coaches were still those father figures. It's just that you perceive them a different way, you listen to them a different way. And
that's what you need in your life. You need, because everybody's saying the same thing. You just need different voices telling you, because you get tired of hearing your mom say the same thing to you, do this, do that, do this, do that every day. But if somebody else is telling you that, and then multiple people are telling you that, maybe it starts to make some sense. Hey, yeah, what my mother's telling me really makes sense, because my coach is telling me this, my baseball coach is telling me that, my basketball coach is telling me that. So there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about that. Hey, everyone, I appreciate you listening to Huddle Up with Gus. Check us out wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. We're talking with Warren Moon. Warren, I want to get into your college. Now, how did you pick Washington? I know you said you didn't have a lot of four-year schools looking at you, but you're in LA. It's nice and sunny and warm, and then you got to go north to Washington. Was that a big change for you?
It was. Out of high school, I committed to Arizona State, believe it or not, as a quarterback. And Frank Kush was there at the time.
Yeah.
And then they ended up signing the two top high school quarterbacks in the country, a guy by the name of Dennis Sproul and another guy by the name of Bruce Hardy. And then they called me and told me, we're still going to offer you the scholarship, but we're going to change your position to defensive back or wide receiver. No. I'm like, no, thank you. And that's why I decommitted and went to junior college for the year, because I was not going to play another position that I really never played before. So when I went to the University of Washington, it was mainly because I had a chance to compete for a starting job. They did have a fifth-year senior guy by the name of Chris Rowland, who was their starter. But new coach coming in, Don James, and he told me that he was going to give me a chance to compete for the job. I was going to be on the West Coast, which my mother and family could still watch me play a lot, whether our games were on TV or be able to come to games. So all those things were the reason why I decided to go to the University of Washington. Chance to play, because I had already gone to junior college and wasted 1 year. So, only had 3 years left. So I wanted to go where I had a chance to compete. Like USC recruited me, but they had Vince Evans at the time, and I would have had to red shirt if I went there. So there was reasons why I didn't stay locally. I wanted to go to Stanford, but they wouldn't recruit me as a quarterback. And James Lofton, who was also an all-city quarterback when I was in school, he went to Stanford too, and they changed him from quarterback and he becomes an all pro and Pro Football Hall of Fame wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing the people that do switch. You look at John Lynch and other people that do switch, but some of us, it's like, yeah, I'm not playing. Like, even when I went to college, they're like, you want to play tight end? I'm like, no. I'm just playing quarterback. That's all I want to do. Yeah. So you go to Washington. You have a incredible career. It was a Pac-8 back then.
Right.
In your senior year, you won the Pac-8, right?
Yeah.
We went to the Rose Bowl.
Won the championship and went to the Rose Bowl, and we beat Michigan in the Rose Bowl that year. And I was MVP of the Rose Bowl. So it was a great senior year for me to close out my career there.
Did your mom go to the game, the Rose Bowl?
Yeah. My whole family was there. They weren't going to miss that one. I had watched that game for many years as a young kid, so it was a dream of mine to be able to play in it one day. I could never afford to go to it. We would go to the Rose Parade, believe it or not. We'd go out and sit out on the street at like 4 a.m. and wait for the parade to start to get a good spot out there and watch the parade. I did that a few different times, but always wanted to go down that hill and see what the Rose Bowl was like and be able to go to the Rose Bowl. So my first time in the Rose Bowl was when I played in it.
So when you came out and you saw your family in the stands, like, was that a big thing, or did you not look at them? Like, some people everybody's a little different with all that.
When I came out of the tunnel with the captains for the coin toss, I walked out of that tunnel and there was 55,000 people in blue and 55,000 people in purple, and I got chills, my man. I almost lost it. I got so emotional when I walked out there, and I had to get myself together because we won the coin toss and we were going to get the ball first, and here I am, still having chills down my body from this atmosphere that I've dreamed about being a part of for so long. But I got it back together, and we took the first drive down, and I ended up scoring the first touchdown of the game.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you bake cookies the night before?
No, didn't have those type of facilities in the hotel, but I had definitely learned how to curtail my nervousness by then, and thanks to my mom.
Yeah, that's awesome. So then it's your senior year. You've had an incredible college career, and you're looking to move on, and like you said before, there's not a lot of guys that look like you are in the NFL, right? There's hurdles that you had to get over all the time. And reading your story, you said you just don't want to be that guy that was undrafted. You want to go play and show people what you can do. So you decided to go to the CFL. And how did that happen for you? Like, what team, who picked, like, why Edmonton?
Well, I had an agent at the time, Lee Steinberg, and we were kind of talking to the NFL.
Small name. No big deal.
We were talking to teams and different personnel that he knew throughout the league about what were Warren Moon's possibilities. And the feedback that he was getting was most people were going to either draft me late in the draft or they were going to change my position. And then the CFL, Hugh Campbell, who was the head coach at that time, had approached us about me coming up there to play. And he thought I could be a really good quarterback up there, but he even thought I could be a really good quarterback in the NFL. He wasn't sure why teams in the NFL weren't giving me a more serious look. So the more we looked at the pros and cons, I said, maybe Canada's the place for me to go because I don't want to play another position. I'll probably quit the game if I did. And he was giving me a chance to play quarterback. So that's where I went. I went to Canada mainly because I wanted to be assured I'd play quarterback. And the financial package was really good as well. But definitely the fact of playing quarterback was the thing that took me up there.
So, given your background, you go to Edmonton, we all have that feeling like when I got my first paycheck. When you got your first paycheck in Edmonton, what was it like to be able to call your mom and tell your sisters? What was that like for you?
Yeah, there's that first bonus check that you get even before you get to Edmonton. To have that much money based off of where I came from, it was so nice to be able to say, "Hey, Mom, why don't you go out and buy you this or buy you that, or just take care of all her bills and make her where she didn't have to work anymore, so she stopped being a nurse." And just being able to know I could take care of my mom was a great feeling and a great comfort for me. And it was always a motivator for me throughout my whole career that was not only did I want to make it because I love the game and I wanted to continue to keep playing it, but it was also a motivator that I wanted to be able to take care of my mom and my family one day because we had gone through some very, very tough days.
Yeah, I could imagine. So now you're up there. You have a great precursor for what the weather is going to be because you went to Washington from LA, and now you're in Edmonton. Their nickname is the Eskimos. Did you foresee what the weather was going to be like for you?
Gus, I went up there on a visit before I actually signed up there just to see the city and see the facilities. And they had a brand new stadium going in because the Commonwealth Games were going to be there that year. So the Commonwealth Stadium was in Edmonton. It was going to be in Edmonton. And we were going to go in and move into that stadium as soon as the Commonwealth Games were over. So I knew there would be great facilities. But, man, there was like 3 feet of snow when I went up there.
I know that had to be an eye. I mean, Washington, you're going to get a bunch of weather, right? But it's not like in Canada.
No question about it. Nothing like Canada.
I have family in Saskatoon, so, I mean, I know what that's like up there. And you had to go play in Saskatchewan and all these other places, and I'm sure that was pretty intense for you. How do you like, you were always known for throwing the ball and like weather never affected you. Why is that possible? Just, you have huge hands or?
Well, I think the hands help. And the fact that I just practiced in it a lot. You almost have to learn how to throw the ball differently when you play in certain types of weather. Like if you play in rain, I learned how to throw the ball in the rain in Seattle, that you can't grip it as tight, because if you do, the ball is going to come off your hand weird. And then, playing in the cold when the ball is slick and hard like it is, there you have to grip it a little bit tighter. And you got to try and keep your hands warm, for me, so you can feel the football, because a lot of guys can play in gloves. I couldn't play in gloves. I tried to do it. I have to have the feel of the ball. So keeping my hands warm was something that was very important. So I had a jersey made that had fur actually in the pockets of the jersey, and I kept my hands very warm throughout the game so I could actually feel the ball. And once I could feel it and be able to squeeze it a little bit, it would go where I wanted it to.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So 5 CFL titles in a row. And then it's a whole different game. It's still football, but it's a whole different game. How long did it? I mean, obviously it didn't take you that long, but there's different rules and the field's a little wider, and you're like, man, this is bigger. I get to, throw the ball around a little more. No,
it really is a different game. And if you go up there the first time and see one of those games in motion, like the first preseason game I went to, I remember we were playing, I think it was Ottawa, and it was the end of the game, close game, preseason game. And when you punt the ball up there, if you punt it into the end zone and you don't bring it out, you get a point for that, right? The punting team. So we were the receiving team, and they punted the ball in the end zone. And then our guy, Larry Highball at the time, he catches it. And instead of running it out, because he might not have made it out, because our end zones are like 25 yards deep, he punted the ball back out. He punted it back out. And then all of a sudden they caught it and they tried to punt it back in. And I'm like, what the hell's going on here? I've never seen anything like that in my life. But that was part of the game. That's what I loved about that game up there. It just always keeps going, and it's never over until the actual clock says 0-0, because there's so many different ways to score. I mean, you kick a field goal and you miss it, you get a point for that unless they bring it out of the end zone, or every punt return has to be returned. There's no such thing as a fair catch. You get
Isn't it that way for kickoffs?
You get a 2-yard ring around the receiver, and he has to return that, or they get a penalty if they get within that 2-yard ring.
Isn't that for kickoffs too? Like if they kick it out of the end zone, you get a point.
If it goes in the end zone, if it doesn't come out, there's a point there.
That's crazy.
I love that. It keeps the game going. It keeps it moving, and if you want to give up that point, you go ahead and do it. But most of the time, teams are running everything out, so it just keeps the game going.
It does, and then it's faster because we really only have 3 downs, right?
Yeah, and there's a 20-second clock, believe it or not. They wait until the ball is set before they started, but it's 20 seconds, and it moves. The game really, really moves.
So when you were up there, did you call your own plays?
Or did.
How did you like that?
I loved it. I loved it because it made you first of all, have to study more and get more into the game plan. You have more of a feel for the game when you're out there. If you can do that. Of course, I got a lot of suggestions from the sideline. I got suggestions from my, other backup quarterbacks, but because they could see things sometimes that I probably couldn't see, especially from upstairs. But for the most part, we knew how we wanted to attack somebody.
Now, I never got the call because, in the NFL, some coaches are just like, this is my game and you're not calling anything. Like for you, it's probably different. But I would assume when you're calling your only plays, did guys come up to you and say, hey, I was open that last time? Or the running back's like, hey, I think we can get it. The line would be like, you know what I mean? Because you're all in the huddle together. I always wondered what was that like, hey, I'm killing this guy. We got to come over here.
I didn't allow any talking. Once the huddle got formed, you better tell me something in between when we're walking back to the huddle. And receivers are always open. It didn't matter if
that's
the plays or if I wasn't calling the plays. Receivers are going to always tell you that they're open. And so I never paid any attention to that either. I talked to those guys on the sideline, and I wanted to know exactly why they thought they were open, because I can tell them, well, there was a safety right on the other side. Yeah. And you didn't see him. But if there was some legitimate way he thought he could beat a guy, we'd take some individual route and make it an individual, stutter go or whatever it might be that he thinks he can beat a guy on. But yeah, for the most part, it was still going to be me in command calling the plays because I was going to be the one to take the blame if they didn't work.
Right. And I love that. Like, I'm responsible for throwing the touchdowns. I'm responsible if they don't work. Like that should be how the game is played, I think.
Exactly, because you don't want me to say, well, so-and-so told me to throw him that ball, and I didn't know he was going to be double covered, but he was, and I threw an interception. And so to eliminate any of that, you just say it's all on you, but if it's going to be all on you, it's going to be my suggestions.
Yeah, no, I definitely get that. So you got to do this. Like, I'm sure in college you didn't get to do that. Call your own play, right? The coach was doing it. You get up there.
Or the NFL.
Right. So you get a new power, but it makes you study more, like you said. Did it take your level of knowledge of the game up a little bit from college?
No question about it. And again, it's a feel thing. And you know the things that you execute best. You know the type of throws you want to throw. You know what you think your best throw is on third down and in certain situations. And I didn't always feel like that had to come from the sideline. I could tell you what I had been feeling throughout the game by who I thought I could work on, which receiver I like to work in that particular situation. So it was easier for me calling plays on my own. But, the NFL coaches took it over and they have those egos. And they think they know everything best. So I just went along with it. But the great thing about playing in the NFL when I was in there, because coaches had respect for me, what we did throughout the planning throughout the week, and especially when we got to like Friday, we would sit down and talk about every situation, whether it's, first and 10, second and medium, second and short, second and long, third, all the different situations. What were the plays throughout the week that we were working on that you liked and what that you didn't like? And then those were the things I would write down. And then those were the things that were usually called in those situations in the game. So we were pretty much on the same page, even though somebody else was calling the plays. I could almost anticipate what that call was going to be.
Now, when you get to the NFL, you see the play callers today on the sidelines. There's a sheet like that wide. It's front and back.
Ridiculous.
And then the quarterback has a massive thing. He's got to remember the plays. I love like when the third string quarterback got to come in, calls a play from his wristband. Then he's walking up the line, reading it again.
Yeah, he looks like he's in elementary school. Just trying to cheat off of a test or something.
I think the offense that you ran in Houston was awesome to me because it was predicated on, it was maybe the same play call, but it's a bunch of different plays because of the defense they give you.
We had 5 or 6 different passing plays, but there were so many different adjustments off that one play that the receiver should always be right if he saw how he was being played, whether it was zone, whether it was man, whether it was inside man, outside man. So he always had a good way to go. And if we were on the same page as far as me seeing what he was seeing, it was hard for people to stop what we were doing.
But it takes a lot of work to do that.
That was when I was in the run and shoot. Yeah, but you know what? You keep it simple to where you don't have to have all these different play calls. It's a matter of just repetition of giving different looks in practice. So we did a lot of individual work where we just gave different looks and we threw off of those looks. That's what we did most of the time in individual period.
But people
so we kept it simple. And then the things that we were really good at, we just kept running those things over and over till somebody could stop.
Well, that's the old high school coach adage, right? KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Yeah. That's what they'd always tell you, like in high school. Just keep it simple. Let your guys run what they run. Yeah,
but the West Coast system, is a ton of different plays. And I finally went to the West Coast system when I went to Kansas City. And boy, oh boy, did that boggle my mind. Because I had gone through all these different offenses for the 20 years that I was in the league, not 20 years, but 15 years I was in the league before I got there. And now all of a sudden I got to learn and call everybody's route, everybody's protection, all the flare control routes by the backside of the backfield. It's so much put on the quarterback in that offense, man. Your head is spinning and they call so many different plays. We went into games with 150 pass plays. I'm like, how do we have all these pass plays? We're only going to run 70 plays as it is in the game. Half of those are going to be running plays, and some of them you repeat. So why do we need to learn 150 plays before a game?
Well, I started out in the digit system, the Don Coryell system, right? Yeah. That wasn't that bad. Like you call protection was a word, and then you'd say 585, 98, whatever, right? And then I go to the West Coast with Mike Shanahan. And I study every night, and I still don't understand. And he'd come up to me, he'd be like, Steve Young memorizes. I'm like, he has a photographic memory. Like, I don't, because it was like every play was its own play. So if I gave you a formation with a motion, you knew what the play was.
Right.
And I'm like, that was just blowing my mind, right?
Well, yeah, that's how they call it the plays. He just give you the play, and you had to put everything else together with it. You had to put the formation, the motion, and everything with it. Like I said, that was as much study as I ever had to put into the game. Those my last 2 years in the league.
And you still, I think you still made a Pro Bowl that year, right? In Kansas City?
Not in Kansas City, no. In Seattle, I did. But
That's right.
We were running more of a spread offense, which I loved, and it was Dennis Erickson's offense. And
I like Dennis a lot.
And it was more like the number system, like you were talking about, 844, 844 flat or whatever. And we did the same thing in Minnesota with Brian Billick. I love that offense as well.
Yeah, Minnesota was, I loved Minnesota when I played there.
I did too. I still do. I still have a lot of good friends there and still go back and visit.
I do too. There's just people there's a different place up there. I loved Minnesota. And have you seen the new facility?
I have. I haven't seen the new practice facility, but the new stadium. But I heard the practice facility is amazing. Well,
and I was like, I walked in the new practice facility. There's like windows. You could see outside. The old one was like a bunker.
Wasn't it?
It was like a bunker.
Just like a bunker.
You walk in, it's dark. You leave, it's dark, and you don't see the light of day.
You don't see the light unless you go out to practice. And if it was too cold, we practiced indoors, so you never went outside.
Right, and everybody's super pale. Like I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like,
and you had to
go outside.
Did you have a car starter? I used to have a starter for my car that I would start my car before I went in the shower after practice and take my shower, dress, go out to my car. By then, it would be warm enough for me to get in it. That's how cold it was sometimes.
Yeah, I had a diesel truck, and they had plug-ins. Like you go to practice, you could plug in your truck, so it'd say warm, and you could start it up. Hey everyone, we are talking with Warren Moon. I appreciate you listening to Huddle Up with Gus. Check me out at huddleupwithgus.com or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. So Warren, we're going it's kind of amazing. You've had this incredible career, and I feel like I'm still a kid watching you play, because it's just amazing how you threw the ball. One thing I wanted to ask you, because for me, every training camp I'd go in and the end of my fingertips were always raw. Mm-hmm. And I watched a video of a guy talking about you could just hear the ball coming off Warren's fingers, right? It has that, and so did you have like that, where you had to get used to throwing so many passes in training camp? Just those little things I remember about the game. Yeah,
your hands would get calloused.
Yeah.
It built that callus up on the end of your fingers just because you threw the ball so much in training camp. You know how it is. They bring in 20 receivers and 15 tight ends and 3 quarterbacks. And you got to throw, one quarterback is down with the running backs. And so there's only 2 quarterbacks there, sometimes only 1. And you got to throw to these guys pumped after pumped after pumped after pump. Your arm wants to fall off by the end of camp. And that was one of the things I developed was a stretching program for my arm and the way I iced it down. I read books by Nolan Ryan and also Oral Hershiser, how they took care of their arms as pitchers. And I looked at my arm as just being like a pitcher. What can I do to get the most out of my arm and get it to, to bounce back when I needed it to bounce back, especially for second practice. They don't have double days anymore. They don't have to worry about that.
No, they don't worry about that.
We threw the ball a lot, and your arm took a lot of abuse.
Yeah, double days were tough, right? Because you had to lift, you had to do all that stuff in double days. Yeah. And then, for me, once I got past the arm soreness, once that went away a little bit, right, I was good to go. It was
But it's tough when your body cools down and, you go through this hard workout in the morning and then your body cools down. And then you go take a nap during lunchtime, and then you got to get back up and you're stiff and you got to try and get everything going loose again. And especially as you get older, it was harder to do that. But I really took great care of myself. And I think that's one of the reasons why I didn't have a lot of injuries. And my preparation and also the way I rehab. Like, I hated to get in that ice tub, but I got in it every day, like the DBs did, and just like the running backs did, just to get my legs back ready to go again.
You just slide in that silver tub with the hit the button, and it would do the whirlpool.
I'd have a towel in my mouth and biting it.
Yeah, they used to make those little rubber booties you put over your toes.
For your toes. Yeah. I had all of that.
Oh yeah. Everybody, like, you didn't want to do it, but you had to do it because you knew it helped you recover.
They don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah. So you made all these incredible transitions in your life. And then you're at the Chiefs. It's your last year, and then you're done. Like, I talk to people all the time about, like, when you're done, you're done. I can never go back to it. And it's so hard. People don't understand how hard that is for us, because we're not like, yeah, you got to play a long time, but some people aren't. They play 10 years.
Yeah.
And then they're 32. And it's like, okay, what do I do now?
You do now, yeah.
How did you handle all that? Because you had this incredible success throughout your career. Then it's like, what do I do now?
I never in a million years imagined I would play 23 years of professional football. I was just trying to get in the league, first of all, and play. And now I finally get, from the Canadian experience to the NFL. And that was one of the reasons I went to Houston, is because of my chance to play right away. And then their financial package was the best. I really wanted to go to Seattle, believe it or not. But their financial package wasn't as good as Houston. And I'm figuring I've already played 6 years. Maybe I have 6 more left. That'll give me a 12-year career, which is a long career at that time. Yeah. So I got to get the most money I possibly can coming out of this deal. I'm thinking this might be my last deal. I'm not sure. So that's kind of what my thinking was. But now I end up playing another 17 years in the NFL. But during that time, and one of the things my attorney, Lee Steinberg, told me when I first came into the league, use the NFL as a stepping stone for the rest of your life, because when you do retire at 35 years old or before, you create relationships throughout this whole time, and make sure you're collecting business cards and meeting people and getting involved in your community and doing all these different things that kind of help you prepare for after the game was over. So I did things like in the off season, I would work in commercial real estate. I was involved in broadcasting. I did sideline reporting for TNT during the off season. I did all these different things to figure out what I wanted to do when I retired. But it just never came. It just kept, my career just kept going and going.
Just kept going.
So by the time I did retire, I had a pretty good idea of what I wanted to do when I was done. But it was only because I tried all these other things, and I had a lot of great relationships that I had built up over those years because of his advice.
And I love that advice, because I tell people that all the time. If I had one thing I'd go back and do over, I mean, I had kids when I was 25. I had them, and they're all grown and everything now, but if I could go back and do anything, I would have wrote everybody's name I ever met in a book with their number and how to meet them, and how to connect with them. Because as now, when you get out and you want to do some business, that's all foreign to me. Like, you were doing it. That's so smart that you were doing it while you were playing. And that's incredible advice from Lee.
Yeah. And you notice most of the quarterbacks that he represented, whether it was Steve Young or myself or Drew Bledsoe or Troy Aikman, or go on and on, these guys have all done very well once their careers were over.
Yeah. So you have an incredible career. You start your next career. I know you went in. Did you go right into TV and radio for the Seahawks?
Yes, I did a couple of years. Well, I did a year for Westwood One, and I did some Fox college football as well, Pac-12. I mean, at that time, Pac-10 football. Yeah. And then I just kind of eased into the Seahawk thing, because I just loved it. I was living in Seattle. I had familiarity with the Seahawks that I had played there. I went to the University of Washington. It just all made sense to be up here in Seattle.
And, your life, you talk about your mom being your mentor and helping you with leadership and everything. And you've had all these hurdles to go through as an African-American quarterback, right? We know these things are real. So how did you see, because I know you've mentored Cam Newton and some other guys that have come in the league. How do you approach them and say, hey, I want to work with you. I want to teach you things that I never had, and hopefully I can help you be successful?
Well, a lot of it was with Cam, for instance. He had gone to a football camp that myself, Doug Williams, and James Harris had in at Disney World, at Wide World of Disney. So I met him when he was 14 years old in high school, 15 years old in high school. And it was this big, I mean, he was like 6'3" at that time and probably about 225 pounds as a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
Cannon of an arm, but the ball would go everywhere. Nobody knew where it was going to go. So we tried to work with him, but then years later, after he goes to Florida and then he transfers, and the whole story about Auburn and national championship, his dad calls me up and says he wants me to work with him. So different relationships happen different ways just because of relationships. Even with Andrew Luck, I worked with him before he came into the league. Well, Oliver Luck, his dad, was my backup quarterback at the Houston Oilers when I was there. So he called me up and wanted me to work with Andrew. So it just happens through relationships that different people came to you. And because I didn't really seek any guys out, but I was always available for guys to if they needed my help. And that's all I wanted to be, was somebody that they could lean on if they needed it.
Yeah, that is amazing. So then now you're going to culminate your career at the Hall of Fame. You get the call that you made it, and how emotional was that for you? And who was the first person you called to let them know that now you're in a group of people that no one can ever cut you from?
Yeah, that what a day that was. I had done a youth quarterback camp that morning. I was trying to do whatever I could to just keep my mind off of the voting that was going on that day, because I knew the selections were coming up, and a lot of people were telling me you had a chance, and some people were saying, I don't know if you're going to do it this year, and so on and so forth. So I'm trying to keep myself busy. Finally, I get a call from my presenter, who's our beat writer, John McClain, and he's like, Warren, I think you need to get down here to the hotel where they're going to make the announcements, because I think you have a good chance of making it. They're down to the final 8 and you're still in there. And I'm like, John, I'm not coming down there. What if I don't make it? And all of a sudden I'm standing there with my thumb in my butt and embarrassed to death that I didn't make it, because, Michael Irvin had done the same thing. He was kind of hanging around waiting for the selections to happen, and he didn't go in the first 2 or 3 times that he got nominated. So I didn't want to do that, but finally he talked me into it, and my wife talked me into it, and so we're in Detroit at this time because the Seahawks are in the Super Bowl, and I'm broadcasting the game, so we're preparing for the game, and it had been there all week. So we go driving down to the hotel, and I'm driving down the freeway, and it's kind of snowy and sleety out, and I get a call on my phone. And I thought it was the call, but it was a lady from the NFL that said she got these tickets that I had asked for from some friends of mine for a tailgate party. And I'm like, okay, thank you very much. And she's like, and by the way, congratulations on being inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, or being selected. I'm like, what are you talking about? She says, it's going across the ticker tape that you were one of the ones selected. I'm like, nobody's called me. I don't know anything. So I'm not going to go by that, but thank you very much. And then I hang up the phone. Next thing you know, the phone rings again, and it's them. And they're telling me that I was selected as one of the 2006 members. Gus, man, the tears just started rolling out of I was crying like a baby. I mean, I had to pull the car over to the side of the road. I couldn't even control the wheel. My wife had to take the wheel of the car. It seemed like everything that I had gone through just came pouring out of me. All the different journeys that I had to make to get to where I was, everybody that told me I couldn't do it, and all the other African-American quarterbacks who were told the same thing that I knew about, all of that just came pouring out of me. So it was probably one of the most emotional moments of my life.
I can imagine it's like when they say, like, if you have a near-death experience, you think of everything that happened in your life and it comes flying back in like a minute, right? I'm sure that like everybody, your high school coach, your college, like everything happens in a minute. And I can imagine why that's so emotional.
Yeah. And I never even thought about it in those terms beforehand. Like, how am I going to react if I do make it? How am I going to react if I don't make it? I always try to be positive, but there's always that little bit of doubt in there to kind of protect yourself, against bad news. It was probably the most emotional moment I've ever had, because I'm not a big emotional guy.
Yeah, well, you're very even keel.
Very even keel, but I lost it on that one.
I can see the night before your speech, like, I mean, guys everybody's around you. I can just see you saying, I need to take a break. I'm going to go bake some cookies, some chocolate chip cookies. I'm going to calm my nerves. Because that has to be a very...
If I would have had an oven and some flour and eggs at my disposal, I probably would have done it.
I can just see you like handing them out to the guys, like all the Hall of Famers that came before you. Like, hey, that's the only way I calm my nerves. Yeah, no, what a career. And then I didn't even write a speech. All I did was put some bullet points down. I put like 8 bullet points down on a piece of paper that I wanted to hit, and that's what I did. I didn't write a whole speech, and I just spoke from my heart. Right. You kept it simple. Yeah, that's your offense that you love. The Houston Oilers offense is what your speech was. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, so now you've had all this happen to you, and now you're kind of moving on. You've given back. I know. Are you still involved in? You have the Crescent Moon Foundation, right. And tell us a little bit. Tell our fans about that, and if they can help you out in any way. Well, I started it back in 1989 when I was NFL Man of the Year, and basically my mother had always taught me about education, that was the most important thing you needed. And one of the reasons why I even wanted a college scholarship was to be able to get an education, because I knew my mom wouldn't be able to afford to send me to college. Right. So I knew that everybody couldn't be a professional football player. Everybody can't be an entertainer, a singer, a pro baseball player. But if you have education behind you, have a chance to be a competitive in life, right? Yeah. So that was my main focus, was to provide scholarship opportunities for young kids that come from, impoverished backgrounds, but have the grades, have the desire, but need the financial support. So that's how I set up my foundation to give out scholarships. Now, we did a lot of other things, but our main focus was to raise money for scholarships. And over the years, we've given over some 350 scholarships. That's incredible. To college for young kids. So it's great when you get those calls back later after they graduate college or whatever, and tell you how much they appreciate it, and then as they're taking on a new job or whatever it might be. So it's a very rewarding experience to go through that. Anybody ever from Hamilton High School? Oh, yeah. I had a scholarship that was just for Hamilton. Well, 2 scholarships every year just for Hamilton. I had a couple out of my Pop Warner program that I would, sponsor a couple of kids that couldn't afford the fees to play football. So I tried to give back in as many different ways as I could, with the funds that we had. Yeah, no, that's amazing. You've had an incredible career. You're doing some amazing things now with the rest of your life. And so what's next for Warren Moon? I'm thinking about doing something like you're doing. I've been talking to different people about possibly doing a podcast. I just got approached by a production company maybe about doing a movie on my life, believe it or not. That would be amazing. I'm on about 3 boards now. I'm on the Pro Football Hall of Fame board. I'm on the Rose Bowl Legacy Board. I just got back from the Rose Bowl, last week, a couple of weeks ago for the game. So there's a lot of things I'm doing right now, and really staying busy, but having a lot of fun as well. And then I have 8 grandkids now. So wow, I spend a lot of time with my kids and grandkids down in Houston, Texas. That's where they all are, and spent Christmas with them. Had a really great time. So. Yeah, I'm really happy with the way my life's going right now. I can kind of pick and choose what I want to do. I love it. I don't want to do anything. I don't have to do anything. So it's a great place to be. So one last question here for you. So when you're with your grandkids, do you ever say something that says, "Oh, my mom would have said that"? Do you ever catch yourself doing that? Yes, I do. Because it's like there's just certain things that take you back. Yeah, and those things were told so much to you that you almost have an obligation to tell your grandkids that. Right. Same thing with your own kids. I still tell my own kids, my grown kids, some of the things my mother used to tell me, and they look at me like, "Dad, give me a break. I'm 35 years old. Why are you telling me that?" Yeah. Because my mom told me that. Yeah, right. And it still hits you like it was yesterday, right? Yeah. Hey. Warren, I really appreciate you joining me and telling us some of your stories. I hope you had a good time, and I wish you all the best in everything you're doing. Hey, Gus, thanks a lot for having me on, man. I appreciate it, and
if we ever want to talk again down the road, we can do that. I really admired you when you played the game. Didn't think it was very smart of you to headbutt a wall, but other than that, I loved everything you did about it.
I probably was the only one who thought it was a good idea. Hey, as I had this poster in my college dorm room, and it was a duck, and I don't know, my mom bought it for me, and it just said "shit happens," and it's kind of my motto when that happened. I'm like, you got to deal with it and moved on. I played another 10 years after the most embarrassing thing that ever happened in my life, and you don't let it get you down. You just
not at all. I just thought it was funny.
Oh, it was funny. A lot of people laughed about it. I still get to talk about it.
I'm glad you weren't seriously hurt, but now that I knew you weren't seriously hurt, I said that was the funniest thing I've ever seen about a quarterback.
Well, the Redskins wanted to fine me $25,000 for doing that because they said it was conduct detrimental to the team.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Warren, how can our fans find you?
Well, you can go to me at Warren Moon 1 on Twitter, Warren at W Moon 1 on Twitter, and then Warren Moon 1 on Instagram.
Which one has better pictures of the old Warren Moon?
Probably the Instagram.
Yeah, I bet there's some really good ones on there from back in the day.
I do some good throwback Thursdays sometimes. So
I love that. I love that.
You might see me as a 2-year-old. You never know.
You never know. Hey, Warren, I appreciate you coming on. Good luck with your podcasting. It's a lot of fun.
It's something I want to be able to commit to if I'm going to do it, and I want to do it the right way. I just don't want to do one. I
think you should just come out of your shell and just be like the anti-Warren Moon, super excited, not low key at all, and just go for it.
Yeah, and then all the critics will be saying, "Look at him being phony out there. That's not him at all."
all your old receivers will call you up and say, "What are you doing?"
I know. What are you doing? That is not you.
Yeah, right.
Where is Warren? Anybody know where he is?
Yeah, right. What happened to him? All right, Warren. Have a good night, man. I really appreciate you joining us. Huddle Up with Gus. Hey, everyone. Thanks for another great episode and listening to us. Go to our website, huddleupwithgus.com. Check us out or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. We'll see you next week.
And that's a wrap, sports fans. Thanks for joining in the fun at the 1631 Digital Studios for another action-packed Huddle Up with Gus, featuring 15-year NFL quarterback Gus Frerotte. Huddle Up with Gus is proudly produced by 1631 Digital Media and is available on Apple Music.